Hi, welcome to Psychology Today. I'm your host, Ann Morrow, and this is a show about bicycling in general and specifically about bicycle safety. Thanks for watching. I hope that Psychology Today helps inspire you to ride a bike and to be more mindful of safety. We try to celebrate those in our community that incorporate bicycling into a career choice or an entrepreneurial endeavor, and those that strive to encourage other cyclists or those that support cycling and bicycle safety. Our producer, Northwest Bicycle Safety Council, is an organization that promotes safety and harmony between cyclists and works to strengthen our community and your families through cycling-related programs and events. We've got our helmets ordered for 2019, and our volunteers will be placing free helmets on hundreds of local heads at various cycling-related events in the coming months. And importantly also is that we will be properly fitting them to those heads. So learn more about that on our website. And I want to give a quick thank you to our capable crew in the control room, volunteers that make this show possible. Our guest is Yashar Vasef, who is the Senior Development Manager at Community Cycling Center. And so we're going to spend the entire show talking to him about all the many activities that Community Cycling Center does. And I think there are many organizations in our community, thankfully, that try to make this a better place, particularly for cyclists, and Community Cycling Center is definitely one of them that's just impassioned about cycling and a lot of different aspects of it that maybe other organizations don't even cover. So let's meet Yashar and talk to him about Community Cycling Center. So thank you for joining us, Yashar.
Thanks for the invitation. I'm excited to be here. We're
excited to have you. I always like to start with a little background, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Iran. I was born in Iran. I was actually born in the middle of the Iran-Iraq War, so I didn't have access to a bike for a while, but we made it to the States when I was 8 years old, and my mom is an artist, my dad's a doctor, my dad believes in a healthy lifestyle, and once I got on a bike, he definitely promoted my participation in that recreation. And I've lived kind of all over the States. We first arrived in Cleveland, Ohio. Then, as a rite of passage, it seems, for all Iranians, we ended up in Los Angeles. And then from Los Angeles to the Midwest in Iowa, where I spent most of my life, actually. And that's where I met my partner, Joanne. And long story short, I followed her for love, and she found work here in Portland. And so I followed her here, and we've been here for 3.5 years now, roughly. And it's been a great time here.
Well, kind of a belated welcome to the Northwest.
Thank you.
And at the time we're filming this, I bet you're awfully glad not to be in the Midwest right now.
Indeed, yeah. I've heard some stories from friends in Chicago and elsewhere, some pretty terrifying stories.
Yeah. And also I want to mention that many a guest it's been love that brought them to the Northwest. So good for you. So you are a cyclist, and having not ridden a bike really early on, was it challenging for you to get on a bike as an 8 or 9 year old? Was that a little off-putting?
It was even after 8 or 9 years. I was probably more around 10, 11, maybe 12. So it took a little while, and I think it was one of those Walmart brand bikes, probably a Huffy, and more than anything, I remember the bike itself having issues over time, but it took a little while to learn, just like any kid. But once I did, my brother and I, he's a year younger than me, we had freedom all of a sudden to explore our neighborhood, and that was amazing. And I discovered so many things through a bike.
And that's the common thread, is that independence and that freedom that a bicycle gives a child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, good. So What's your favorite ride right now? What kind of riding do you like to do?
Here in this part of the nation, I'd say I'm kind of in love with the Row River Trail just south of Eugene.
Oh.
It's a rail trail.
Uh-huh.
It's beautiful. It goes kind of by the covered bridges,
Uh-huh.
and it basically wraps around half of Darina Lake. It's just a lovely, lovely ride. It's not too hilly or anything like that. And it's kind of lesser known. Like, none of my friends here who cycle really know about it. So it's a bit of a hidden gem in Oregon, but it's absolutely stunning. And I highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't tried that one out yet.
I'm intrigued. Is this a road bike ride or a mountain bike ride?
Road bike.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes I take my commuter bike as well.
And how did you find out about it?
Through the wonders of the internet. Yeah, I saw some conversation online, and and some great reviews and some really cool pictures, so I knew I had to do it.
Okay, well that does sound interesting. I mean, it's the dead of winter, so any good bike ride sounds
Right.
really intriguing right now. And what brought you to the Community Cycling Center?
You know, I remember seeing on, shortly after I arrived in Portland, I was following Bike Portland, the blog, and I saw that, I believe it was there, I saw there was a call for volunteers. And I was intrigued, and I thought maybe it's a better way to meet some people. So I signed up to volunteer at the holiday bike drive.
Uh-huh.
And once I got there, you know, the event won me over instantly. There was these cute 48-year-old kids getting bikes, many from backgrounds like my own, from immigrant backgrounds, and that really touched me very deeply. And so I told myself, I made a mental note that if there was ever an opportunity to work with the Community Cycling Center, I would, you know, try to do that, and here I am, and luckily worked out, and I feel very, very blessed.
Well, we are too, because it's people like you that make it all happen. So just give us a brief overview of Community Cycling Center. It's got a lot going on, but just kind of a
I'll give you the really quick one.
Okay.
So we're excited. This is our 25th year anniversary.
Wow.
So we were founded in 1994 in the Alberta neighborhood, and really the premise in the very beginning, with the help of some seed money from Cycle Oregon, actually, the premise was to help kids maintain their bikes, kids in the neighborhood, especially kids from lower income backgrounds, and also as a means to keep them away from negative influences. You know, Alberta was a very different neighborhood back then, and just to get them on bikes, and a lot of them didn't have maintained bikes, so teaching them how to maintain their bikes was really the goal initially, and to get more kids on bikes in the neighborhood.
So that seems like a pretty simple, straightforward concept, and it's just mushroomed from there.
Yeah.
So it is multifaceted, and we can't cover everything, even in this entire show, but probably the most significant and well-known event is the one you mentioned, is the holiday bike drive. So tell us a little bit about that, and maybe not just the one that you went and volunteered at, but maybe a current one, because it's probably evolved since even before you got on board.
Yeah, so you know, our mission is to broaden access to cycling for people from all backgrounds, especially from lower incomes, people, so that they can have access to the benefits of cycling as well. So the Holiday Bike Drive started very shortly after the organization itself was founded. We just had, I believe, our 23rd annual Holiday Bike Drive at Legacy Emmanuel Hospital. We roughly give away 400 bikes a year. It goes up and down depending on our production throughout the year, the help of volunteers, and how many bikes are donated. And we work with partnering agencies, you know, nonprofits throughout Portland that have communications with families from different backgrounds, and just making them aware that there is this resource available. And it's really exciting to see the kids come, and you know, we don't believe in giving away bikes. There's an earn a bike component, so even for these 4 to 8 year olds, they start with a safety education piece at the program itself. They learn about basic road safety, how to wear a helmet properly, things like that. And we have amazing volunteers. We usually have up to 200 volunteers the first Sunday in December at this event. And you know, they're helped along the way with the help of a bike buddy. They get their helmet fitting. Then they get to pick a bike. We make sure they always have at least 20, 30 bikes to choose from. And then there's probably my favorite part is the bike rodeo, where they get to try the bike, and a lot of happy faces in the bike rodeo.
Boy, I'm sure there are. Boy, I like that idea that they maybe have a bike buddy, and it's not just, here's your bike, kid, and down the hallway you go. It's learning how to use it and the safety and the whole helmet thing.
Absolutely.
That sounds really great. So personally, any particular stories about anyone that at the holiday bike drive?
There's a lot of great stories that come out of the holiday bike drive, and we have a family room where like parents and kids can leave thank you cards, and just the ones that really get me in the feels are the ones about like I couldn't afford a gift this Christmas holiday period, and you really saved me. Stories like that, and that's why we do this, is to connect with families. And I'm thinking of my background as an immigrant. For a lot of these families coming from an immigrant background, it's a great way to say, you're welcome in this community. You can have access to everything other kids can have. I didn't have a bike when I was very young in Cleveland. A lot of my friends did, and I felt a little left out. So, there are these little nuances that this program covers in such a beautiful way. And, out in Portland, this summer, you're going to see a lot of kids with bikes that they attain through this program, and that always excites me.
That is exciting. Well, that's a great beginning. We're going to go to a quick safety video, and then we'll come back with more about Community Cycling Center. And so let's go to a quick video again about bike safety, and then we'll be back about Community Cycling Center.
In Oregon, our forests and rivers are more than just scenic viewpoints. They're a chance to play in the water, cast out a line, and swing among the trees. Savor the great outdoors as you pedal toward adventure on the Cascading Rivers Scenic Bikeway. Oregon has some of the most beautiful places in the nation for biking, and it's also one of the most bike-friendly states. That's why it's the first state in the country to have official scenic bikeways. The Cascading Rivers Scenic Bikeway is a 72-mile road route that traverses the foothills of the Cascade Mountains. It begins in historic downtown Estacada with bike-friendly businesses and cafes. It follows car-free Faraday Road, then continues on quiet forest roads alongside the Clackamas and Brighton Bush rivers. And it ends in the small community of Detroit, along the banks of Detroit Lake. Camp in lush old-growth forest, ride beside rocky cliffs, and play in meandering mountain rivers. Experience nature beyond the viewpoints, and come ride the Cascading Rivers Scenic Bikeway.
Well, we're back with Yashar Vasef, and we're talking about Community Cycling Center. And that video wasn't so much about safety, but just about riding. And again, at this time when we're filming this live, it's February, and any bicycle ride looks awesome, and that certainly did. So we're fortunate to have all those scenic bikeways here in the state of Oregon, and something to look forward to when the weather gets better. So let's talk some more about Community Cycling Center. So Community Cycling Center also runs bike camps in the summer. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, so we've been running bike camps for a while now, and we have an amazing camps team who spends all year planning for these summer bike camps. They're week-long bike camps for students between grades 1 and 10, and they're different themes. So there might be a food cart camp, things like that. And last year I believe we had roughly 700 participants. And it's really blossomed into something special, and for these kids it's something they look forward to coming back to every year.
So they're just like day camps, is that right? And the kids come and spend most of the day
Precisely,
with your camp counselors or whatever you identify them as.
Yeah, so we have camp instructors, and they start with, speaking of safety, they have their safety checks every morning, making sure everything looks good, not just on the bike, but on their person. And they'll ride to parks typically. We're blessed to have funding from regional partners, including Metro regional government, to incorporate nature education programming as a piece of bike camp. So often they'll go to a park and have a lesson on something nature related. And it's just amazing the kind of places you can get to as a group for these kids that maybe they didn't imagine they could reach on a bike.
I think you came to the Portland Wheelman Touring Club, and I think you spoke about those, and I think most of us were sitting there going, I want to come.
Yeah, they look so fun. I actually had the chance to ride along with the camp this past summer, and it's just a really, really fun time. And for the kids, I've been told early in the week someone might feel a little lonely or something, but by the end of the week they all have friends, and you can tell they're more confident in themselves and confident in driving on the streets in Portland.
Yeah. Good. I mean, we talk about, a lot of safety is just skills and confidence in what you're doing. And so when you kind of know you're right, like being in the bike lane, that gives you a lot of confidence and safety. Now, do they learn some bike maintenance? Because like you're talking about, some people haven't had a bicycle in their home, in their family. Their parents didn't have one. So that whole idea of maintaining a bicycle is also foreign to them.
Right, so there is some basic bicycle education, learning about the different parts of a bicycle. I can't speak to how deep they go into bike maintenance in a week's time, but I imagine there's some basic level education on that. And it's for our scholarship participants, they get to keep the bike at the end of the camp. So they become very acquainted with their bike and how to pump their tires and things like that.
Yeah, like you're saying, just some of the basics, like that tires need air and how you accomplish that, and chains need oil.
Right.
Some of that basic stuff. And so who are your campers? Who's coming to these camps? Since it's not me, I want to do the food camp one.
Sure.
The food cart one.
Like I said, it's open to kids between 1st and 10th grade. We have a lot of repeat campers, and we partner with the Sun Schools and other outfits who work with perhaps kids from lower income backgrounds who normally don't have access to a camp. So our goal this summer is to have 100 of the 700 kids have a free camp through community support, and just be a camper like any other kid and have a great time.
Yeah. Now, are you in the Willamette Week Give?
We are in the Give Guide.
Give Guide, yeah. That probably helps reach out to a broader scope of people for help.
Absolutely. The Give Guide's a wonderful introduction, not only for our nonprofit, but every participating nonprofit, to especially to newcomers. Portland's a rapidly changing city. There's a lot of people moving here, and it's one way to get our brand out there, so to speak, and it's a great resource for organizations like ours. So
you talked about scholarships. How might someone qualify for a scholarship?
Yeah, so if they go to our website, communitycyclingcenter.org, there's a bike camp section there, and there's the qualifications are listed there, and contact information, and we have a bit of a process with that. And once they've gone to our website and got connected to the right people, then we try to help make the magic happen and make sure that they have a great summer camp.
It sounds like that would be a given, but it sounds like you've done a lot of planning. So you kind of briefly mentioned, I know Northwest Bicycle Safety Council were big on safety, big on wearing helmets, having them properly fitted, and so you touched on it, but what kinds of safety things do you teach them then? I know, we have safe routes to school around here and that sort of thing. Do you have adults ride with the children? Do you go over some of the laws and things?
Yeah, so each camp is roughly 10 or so children, and they learn about street signs, they learn about the proper hand signals, even communicating with each other when you ride in a group, like slowing, stopping, things like that. And like I said, when they start every morning, they have their safety checks, and there's a routine there that they kind of, by the end of the week, it's great because they kind of start to memorize the safety check routine. And just looking at their helmets, no sandals, making sure they're wearing proper shoes. Do my tires have air? Things like that. Is my seat secure? Just making sure everything's good to go so they can have a fun, safe ride.
Mm-hmm. It just really sounds like a great, I don't know, it's hard to get children together to have that kind of instruction for bicycling. And certainly parents can do it, but it's good to have that kind of peer pressure and a different adult other than a parent sometimes.
Yeah, our bike camp instructors are amazing. In fact, we have some great success stories. Some of them have gone through bike camp or bike club and are now instructors, which is
Awesome.
amazing. So they're committed to it. They're passionate about it. They make a real connection with the kids, and I think that's why our camps team always gets great feedback at the end of every summer, and kids always want to come back because they make genuine connections not only with the other kids but with our instructors as well.
So what neighborhoods are you conducting these camps in generally?
So our base of operations typically is our bike shop on Alberta Street, but sometimes if we're partnering with a school like in East Portland, we'll start there. And what our camps team will do is try to find good routes that are safe, and we'll connect them to places like parks where they can have lunch and get some education in the process.
Well, Portland has a great infrastructure, I think, so that shouldn't be too challenging.
It gets, when you get to East Portland, it does become a bit of a challenge, especially annexed areas of Portland where, it's a bit more dangerous out there. So they have to be, it depends on where you are, of course, but, there are greenways also in East Portland and more in the process. So slowly but surely, most of the city is heading in the right direction, and we just try to make sure that they have a great fun route to enjoy.
Yeah. Well, you're probably right there that it doesn't all just flow together. There's little parts that aren't quite as safe as you'd probably like for that kind of a.
Well, the good thing is our instructors, they all have great training, and having done a ride-along, drivers are wonderful around the kids because they see a group of kids, they're very aware of the situation, and it feels very, very safe.
Good. And certainly some of the negatives are also good lessons, for the kids. This is how you maneuver through this situation, because it's not always all bike lanes and bike paths.
Even good lessons for me, like, I can't always assume a driver's going to stop, for example. Anticipating when something might go awry is something you can learn at a young age, and these kids can become very, very seasoned and confident riders starting at that age.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, now I'd like to talk to you about the New Columbia Hub and Skills Park. So how does that operate? Where is it? And who benefits from that?
Yeah, so it's in the New Columbia area in North Portland. It's one of Portland's biggest lower-income housing areas, and it was something that was born of community support. We crowdfunded the funds to open up basically what is a satellite bike shop and a skills park. And Rosa Parks Elementary School, I believe, is right there, and Rosemary Anderson Alternative School. And between May and September, the kids can come and earn a bike through their commitment to classes that we basically offer there. We also have earn a bike programs for adults. And what's been great is we've seen like a mom or dad riding with the kid, and both bikes have been earned through our program, which is amazing. And we get wonderful feedback. In fact, when I was told when we opened this past May, there was on the first day a line of kids waiting to have their bikes looked at and to learn how to fix their bikes. So it's a wonderful program that's been in North Portland, I believe, for around 5-6 years. And it's a great community that we're trying to build there with locals and getting their feedback on issues like safe routes to schools.
So if I'm not mistaken, so that little shop has no electricity?
That's right. So it's primitive, but in a wonderful way. And the kids are really engaged, and we have interns there every summer that help with classes and getting connected with folks. And It's just a great thing, great space for kids to come to after school, especially. And it was also open on Saturdays this past year. And one time I happened to be riding by with my partner and forgetting that I was near the hub, and I saw this hub, and I was like, "What's going on?" And I saw some of our folks in our cycling center staff shirts, and I gotta tell you, it was busy. It was busy in a wonderful way, and I think it's really become a staple of the neighborhood.
Now, if I remember correctly, several years back, there was a young man, who had never fixed anything before and was taught how to work on bikes. And so that was a real growth experience for him, and probably for a lot of young people that are somehow included in the camps or this. Learning how to fix something for the first time really kind of opens doors. The problem solving and the working with your hands and the just figuring it all out and working with other people who give advice and help.
Yeah, I mean, there's tremendous value in hands-on skills building that has real-world applications. You know, someone might start with a bike, and next thing you know, they might want to be an engineer. And some of them might want to work on bikes, and it's just a wonderful pathway toward learning more about how things are constructed, how they work, and that hands-on training. You can't put a value on that because it's really amazing to provide them access to that.
Yeah. So really, the secondary to formal schooling is that kind of learning.
Absolutely.
And finding out what some of your skills and abilities are that, like you say, might open up a door or help you seek out a path that you otherwise wouldn't have known to even look at. So
absolutely.
That's really important. So we're going to go to another quick video, and then we'll come back and talk some more about Community Cycling Center. So let's see what this video is about, if it's about safety or just about riding in general.
With higher fuel costs comes a shift in how we travel. More of us are choosing to bike or take mass transit for some or all of our trips. When buses, trains, and bikes share the road, it's even more important to practice safe driving and safe riding. TriMet bus operators are trained to watch out for cyclists. You can help by following a few simple rules of the road. At Max and West stations, cyclists are not allowed to ride on boarding platforms or in pedestrian crossings. Walking your bike across the tracks is the safest way to enter or exit the station. Look both ways before crossing the tracks. Trains may be approaching in either direction. Be sure to cross the tracks straight on. It's dangerous to cross at an angle or right alongside the tracks. It can cause your wheel to slip into the track bed and result in a crash. To be safe, walk your bike across the tracks. Visibility is important when you're riding around buses. Always use a front white light and a rear red light at night, at dusk, and at dawn. And remember, buses have blind spots. If you can't see the operator in the mirror, the operator can't see you. Be predictable. Use hand signals when merging, turning, or changing lanes. This helps bus operators make good decisions around you, such as when to pull out from a stop, when to pass you, and when to make a turn. Ride in a straight line and avoid weaving between parked cars or between the sidewalk and the street. Take the middle of the traffic lane if it is narrow, so drivers behind you will know to move to the left lane to pass. The safest place to be around buses is in front of them. Most important, obey signals and signs. Don't ride against traffic or in areas marked bus only. These streets are closed to bikes and other vehicles. Walk your bike on the sidewalk if you need to. Buses and bikes share the right side of the road and often have to weave across each other's paths as buses serve stops. Buses aren't permitted to cross bike lanes to get into a bus stop until the bike lane is clear. If you approach a bus serving a stop, pass on the left. When you see a stop bus with the right blinker or the flashers activated, that means passengers are getting on and off, and you should pass on the left. When a bus is flashing its yield sign, don't pass. Instead, allow the bus back into the center of the lane. You should even stop if necessary. Yield signs allow buses to get back into traffic after they leave stops so they can stay on schedule. If you have a bad experience with a bus or a train, please let us know by calling 503-238-RIDE or email customerservice@trimet.org. Be sure to note the bus line, location, and the time of day. Working together, we can all share the road safely. Your help goes a long way. To learn more, visit trimet.org/bikes.
Thinking about bringing your bike on the bus? It's easy. Here's what you need to know. If you have a compact folding bike, you're welcome to bring it on board. Otherwise, you'll need to load your bike onto the rack on the front of the bus. Most standard size bikes, and even some recumbents, will fit in the racks. Bike racks can fill up quickly during the morning and afternoon rush hour, so be prepared to wait for another bus if there's no space. To be safe, make sure the bus stops completely and get the driver's attention before loading your bike. First, squeeze the handle on the top of the rack and pull the rack forward to lower it. There are slots for 2 bikes. If the rack is empty, just lift your bike and place the wheels in one of the slots. Then, to secure it, slide the metal bar up over your front wheel or fender as close to the frame as possible. Remove any loose items or valuables from your bike. Be sure to remove panniers, child seats, or any object that could block the headlights or the operator's vision. Finally, board the bus and pay your fare. Don't forget your bike. When you're ready to get off the bus, let the operator know that you need to get your bike. Exit through the front door if you can. Again, make eye contact before you step in front of the bus. Slide the metal bar off of the wheel. Then lift your bike out of the slot and fold up the rack. Never cross the street in front of the bus unless it's stopped at a red light. And that's how you bring your bike on the bus.
These days, more and more Portlanders are using pedal power to get around, and a growing number of cyclists are combining their bike trips with transit. If you're planning on bringing your bicycle on Max, here's what you need to know. TriMet only allows single-seat, 2-wheeled bikes on board, or recumbents and electric bikes the size of a standard bicycle. Trailers are not allowed. Bikes are allowed on Max only if there's room, so try to make your trip before or after rush hour. If Max is full, you need to wait for another train. When Max arrives, allow other riders to exit and enter the train first, then walk your bike on board. Inside, look for the signs that show where bikes may be stored. If a vertical rack is available, use that one first. Remember to keep your bike as clean as possible and try not to brush it against others. Always yield the priority seating areas to seniors and people with disabilities. And be sure not to block the stairwells or aisles. If you're on a train with steps at the front doors, bikes are not allowed at the top of the steps. When you practice good bike etiquette, it makes the ride more comfortable for everyone. Happy riding, and we'll see you on board.
Well, it's always good to review how to ride your bike on the streets with public transportation and how to incorporate public transportation maybe with your bike. And we were talking, we've got Yashar here from Community Cycling Center, the idea of immigrants coming to our area, and I read someplace that and I won't be able to phrase it properly, but your income is really limited by your commute. And so by introducing a bicycle to someone and helping them have a bicycle, you broaden their scope for employment. And then by including the public transportation, you broaden it even further. And so a person with no car can get maybe an education and some employment and increase their income. Because if we all had to work right where we lived, we'd all be kind of in a world of hurt. So I kind of like that concept. So maybe we'll touch on that a little bit more in a moment. Thank you for watching Psychology Today, and we're talking with Yashar Vasef from Community Cycling Center, and all the many things that Community Cycling Center does in our community trying to help people get bicycles and learn about how to maintain them, and bringing them to children, and those children turn into adults who continue to ride their bicycles. So we're really grateful to have them in our community. Before we get back to talking about Community Cycling Center, I want to encourage you all to keep riding throughout the winter and the upcoming, hopefully, spring weather that seems far away. You know, clubs and meetup groups have rides all the time, all year long. So don't let the calendar, the season, make you think that you're limited to riding. Many people are getting ready for summer, looking at their summer activities. What do they want to do? How are they going to reach those goals? And just like we saw that Cascading Rivers ride, that could be something you might want to put on your bucket list. And how will you do that? How will you be ready to ride 72 miles in one day to get to Detroit from Estacada? So one of the first rides in our area, in the Portland metro area, is the Monster Cookie, put on by Salem Bicycle Club, and it's April 28th this year, and it's a flat metric century, and so a lot of people put that on their list because it's flat. It's a good way to judge your fitness and see what you need to do to reach out for some of the other goals you might set. Some people might want to do STP, Seattle to Portland. That's in mid-July. Portland Wheelman is not doing Pioneer Century this year. That was early June. But there's other fun rides up and down the I-5 corridor that are just a lot of fun, and like Yashar was talking about, riding in the Eugene area might not be an organized ride, but you can take friends down and just have a lot of fun. It's just limitless. Reach the Beach is another one that we've talked about here on the show. That is a ride in mid-May. I think it's the 18th. And so if you've done Monster Cookie, you'll know that you can maybe do Reach the Beach, and that's a charity ride and a fundraiser for American Lung Association. So just Google all that stuff and see where the rides are that you want to participate in. So we're going to talk some more and finish up our conversation about Community Cycling Center. So another element is the bike shop. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and why it's unique to our area?
Absolutely. You know, a lot of people actually know us through our bike shop, and they're surprised to find out that we're a nonprofit, that we have all these programs throughout the community. The bike shop is kind of the center of our universe in many ways. It's where we still offer low-income commuter discounts. We have a bike tool library anyone can come and use, and if they have a fix they need to make, they can just stop by and use our tools. And we have new and used bikes and accessories, including kids bikes on up to adult bikes and commuter bikes and anything you need. We have like a tandem bike, I think, right now as well. And it's in its present location. We've been there for quite a while, but we hopped around a bit on Alberta Street. But it's the one at 17th and Alberta with a big mural on the side. Can't miss it. And it's just the community nonprofit bike shop, for lack of a better term. But it's where we build community and get to know people. And our volunteers drop by every Tuesday night to help us get ready for the holiday bike drive. Pretty soon here we're going to start having our Tuesday night drop-ins where people will come in and work on children's bikes and make sure they're clean and they're safe and ready to go. So there's a lot of activity at our bike shop.
So do you have a lot of parts then too?
Yes, and we have salvage Sundays where people can come, and any parts that we can't really use, we'll take pieces from a bike here or there and try to sometimes make a new bike out of it, a great new bike out of it. And whatever we can't use, folks will come on Sunday and they get recycled, whether it's for art or other purposes. In fact, I got an email today from a gentleman who was working with a children's project where they're trying to build an art piece out of used bike parts, and they're going to stop by and get some pieces that they need to do that for their school project. But we've saved over a ton of metal annually through our Salvage Sundays.
So people can donate bikes to Community Cycling Center, and then you in turn will fix it up, like you say, on a Tuesday night, and get it ready to maybe perhaps give to some of these children that need bikes at the holiday drive, or perhaps put it up for sale in your bike shop?
Right. So we take donations, both children and adult bikes. They can end up in a myriad of places. A lot of the children's bikes end up at our holiday bike drive. Sometimes we have a summer bike drive as well. Also, the adult bikes might end up like perhaps in our like STEM program for high school students, and other places like that. So including the hub in North Portland, the adult earn a bike programs there. So no matter what, it's coming back to the cycling center, and it's ending up back in the community, and you're helping a nonprofit in the process.
Yeah. Okay. And so again, just wanting to, what you can volunteer certainly, and we'll talk about that in a moment, volunteer, but also this idea of a lot of people have a bike in their garage that hasn't been ridden. There's a possible home for it.
Absolutely.
So inclusivity is a word being used a lot these days. How is inclusiveness a part of Community Cycling Center?
You know, our mission is to broaden access to cycling, and we're hoping that, you know, we have a Portland where people feel like they can not just have access, but feel included in the community, and really use bicycles as a utility to get around in a safe manner. And you know, internally at the organization, we have a really committed staff to making sure not only do we have an inclusive environment for volunteers and program participants, but also our staff feel like they're working somewhere they're proud to work at, and that's always you know, a work in progress, and something we're aiming toward. In fact, tomorrow we have an all-staff training on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we've committed to 5 full days of trainings this year, and it's something we take really seriously, and it's something our staff is, like I said, very passionate about. And you know, inclusivity, you know, some equity, these are like buzzwords, but they really are front and center of our mission, which is to make sure, you know, like I said, if you're a newly arriving immigrant family, maybe you don't speak English, bicycles are kind of a universal language. You know, like a lot of these folks are coming from places where maybe they didn't have a car, and that bike was how they got around, and maybe in Portland they don't feel like they have that same access. So kind of speaking to what you were mentioning earlier, you know, really getting a bike as a means to save financially some funds, and still have a way to get around, that's really critical. And we, through past partnership of ours like Bike Town for All, through the Orange Bike Share program, where there's a $3 a month low income option, for example, folks who are signed up for that program are actually using those bikes at far greater rates than your average annual member. So we see the results of what happens when you give everybody access to a bicycle. So
as a woman, I think about women that often don't want to ride, I don't know why. And so can you think of anything that we could be doing, all of us, to help women in general get on bikes, and either for just transportation or for fun, mental health? Sure. I mean, I have to look at the mirror myself. You know, sometimes men in the bicycle industry don't do the best job of creating an inclusive environment. That's something we look at our bike shop all the time. You know, if you're we ask ourselves, if we're from different backgrounds, would we feel comfortable walking into our bike shop? And I think that's one of the centerpieces of what we're focusing on, is making sure our bike shop is a place that a woman or anyone from different backgrounds, depending on how, no matter how they identify their gender and what have you, feel safe walking into that bike shop. Because once you have them in there, and you know, they're excited about getting on that bike, the rest is magic, and it happens. But it's that first step in making sure the shop, for example, is an inviting space that's really critical for us. And I've heard that sometimes a person might walk into a bike shop, and it's all, as a female or whatever, and it's all men, and maybe they are a little condescending or whatever, and then that's not a fun experience. So you're right, I really appreciate that you're trying not to be that way, and we all slip into bad habits and use our own lingo or whatever, and we're not connecting with people, and wherever we're at. So I like that. also, some people might be coming from cultures where women did not ride bikes. Is that kind of an issue to just get a woman on a bike at all?
I haven't personally heard any specific scenarios around that, but I'm originally from Iran. Like I said, in that part of the world, there are certain regimes. I'm thinking of places like Afghanistan, where it's been an uphill battle for women to be able to ride bikes. In Iran, there's women do ride bikes, but there's been like talks of banning that from time to time, and it is one way women feel empowered in Iran is getting on a bike and riding around on their own accord, seeing their communities the way they want to see them, and being seen the way they want to be seen. So it's in that region of the world, in certain countries, not certainly every country in the Middle East, but certain countries, it's still an uphill battle, but it's one. The good news is that like the tide is turning, and there's some very empowered women and men who have the privilege to speak up about these issues are starting to speak up on behalf of women, and we're starting to see change there. And and here, like we're talking about, we certainly have work to do as well. I know the census figures, for example, show that there's far more men riding bikes than women are, and it's a thing that we need to, as an industry, the bicycle industry, focus on and think about. What we're trying to do behind our actions, and what actions could we be taking to make biking further inclusive to people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, I hope so. I think there's an uptick, at least I think, generally with women, but you're right, we still have a ways to go, so that it's a choice, not a feeling of I'm not included or that's not my community or whatever.
Right. Like our bike shop manager is a woman, and we have women or gender binary folks as mechanics, and we're proud of that. But we still have, I've been told stories about a customer coming in and talking to the man in the room thinking they're the bike shop owner. So it's something that's front and center for us, and it's going to take some drastic actions on the parts of certain individuals to really advance these causes that we want to see, which is bike shops that are safe and feel comfortable to people, no matter what they look like.
Yes. Yeah. And even if you're some big burly guy and you don't look like a cyclist, well,
right.
You want to be treated the same. So
if you're not able-bodied issues and things like that. And one of the things I give credit to the Bike Town Bike Share program is through Commissioner Udaly, they were able to add the adaptive bike program to that bike share system. I believe we were first in the nation to do that.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So let's talk about you touched on the STEM, Education Bicycle Mechanics program, and STEM being science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so tell us about that part of Community Cycling Center.
Yeah, I love our STEM program. At Rosemary Anderson Alternative School in 2015, we were approached about partnering with them on an after-school program. And I was teaching bike mechanics. They wanted to have some skills trade education for the students there, so they can have applicable skills in the workforce. What we found was that having it after school impacted participation. This is an alternative high school, and some students are having, going through rougher times. They might be the providers for the family. They might be on parole, needing to see a parole officer, needing to go to work, working multiple jobs. So we talked with the school, and essentially we were able to come to an agreement to have the STEM classes be part of the school day, and to have them be accredited toward graduating. And long story short, what we found is excitedly at Rosemary Anderson and at Helens View, attendance for these classes were up. It's hands-on skill building, which has the youth empowered to come each time. There's an incentives program, and they get to keep the bike at the end of the course. And learning about physics and things like that through bike mechanics is wonderful. And for us, going back to our discussion about bike shops, it's actually one way of getting more people from different backgrounds to work at bike shops. So we have an intensive program for some of the students to come to our bike shop, learn more advanced bike mechanics, and then there's an opportunity to them to actually join our staff as a bike mechanic or otherwise. And we, for example, we have a 2016 graduate of the STEM program who is on our staff at the bike shop right now. So there's pathways to careers there, and what we're hoping this program can do is provide more diversity within bike shop staff as well. So like going back to what we were talking about, so more people feel comfortable going to bike shops and they don't seem as intimidating.
And I just happened to look at, like you said, Jonathan Moss's Bike Portland blog lately. There's a lot of openings for bike mechanics around the community. So that is I don't know, that can't be replaced by a robot or something or a computer. It needs that hands-on thing.
Not for the time being, I'd say, yeah.
And so you mentioned 2 schools. What part I didn't recognize the names of those schools. What part of town are those located
So Rosemary
in?
Anderson is right next to the Hub.
Okay.
Satellite Bike Shop in North Portland and New Columbia neighborhood, and Helens View is in Northeast Portland, kind of out toward the airport a little bit. And these are 2 alternative schools that we've been working with, and we are working to open up at a 3rd alternative school in the fall. We've had a lot of folks coming to us hearing good things, and you know, luckily we've been able to find increased funding to increase our capacity and provide the course for more students.
So I have limited experience with STEM, but I think robotics, and that sounds like a lot of fun, and also maybe an avenue into science and that kind of thing. But this sounds like just so much more fundamental. And what's the ratio of male to female?
It's situational, depends on the school and the year. I couldn't tell you exactly what those numbers are, but most of the students are students of color. Obviously, at an alternative school, and so often dealing with certain issues, often from low-income backgrounds, and it's just been a great way to keep them at school. We're finding, and we're getting great feedback from teachers and principals about what it's doing to those students and their confidence, and we're hearing great success stories from the program. And you know, if it's not bike mechanics, but maybe through the course they realize that they do want to pursue engineering or something technology related, and that's the beauty of it, is we just want to open up minds so that they can pursue what they perceive themselves doing 5-10 years down the line.
It just really seems like it presents a lot of opportunities for young people that might not ever otherwise have those opportunities, because those things aren't available otherwise in schools and perhaps aren't available in their homes. Like you're saying, just doing something with your hands, repairing, problem solving, just that whole aspect of it that really broadens your brain a little bit.
Right. And these schools have graciously provided the space for us to have these bikes and have bicycle stands, and you know, that takes up room, and the fact that they've committed to us in that way allows the course to be really accessible for the students. They don't need to go off-site to our bike shop or somewhere like that. It's on school grounds, and they're, you know, when we have class, they're working on their bikes right there in the classroom, and they know the bike they're working on. If they keep coming to class, they're going to earn it, and they're going to walk away with it at the end. So there's a lot of incentives there to keep them coming back to class.
And to allow, so is your staff teaching these classes? I mean, that allowing your staff into the schoolrooms too, that took some doing. That must have...
Yeah, so Andrea, who's behind our STEM program, is amazing, and I do want to be clear that it's our staff teaching as well as often a teacher from the school, perhaps a science teacher.
Probably so.
And you know, they work together, and Andrea's super committed, and we're always working on curriculum and new fun activities. The class we went to, we did a fun exercise at the end to learn about the sciences as they relate to bike mechanics, and Andrea is just super committed to making sure these classes are fun at the end of the day, because that's really what brings the students there, is their curiosity, and you know, what kind of like fun, unique exercise are we going to do next? Yeah.
Boy, I can see why you're so excited about this. That just sounds wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we've just got a few minutes left. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to be sure and mention about Community Cycling Center?
We talked briefly about volunteers, but we're always looking for more volunteers. There's information on our website, we've given away roughly 11,000 bikes to date, and we're really proud of that, but there's so many more bikes to give away. So we always, like I mentioned, take bike donations at our shop, and volunteering is something that we're hoping provides new opportunities, new connections, new resources for us by getting new volunteers at our shop who also become more connected with our programs and the value of our mission, what it means to actually broaden access to cycling, and what are the positive net results of that. So we're just very thankful for the support of Portland. Like I said, this is 25 years.
Yeah.
We're really excited about that, and we're hoping there's fun and accomplished 25 more years. And we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary, hopefully.
I hope so too. Well, and sometimes we hear about a lot of problems in the world, and what can I do to help? And here's something that you can do on a community basis that probably really helps somebody. So it really sounds like a good idea. So we talked about giving. If you have used bikes, maybe reach out to Community Cycling Center, and the idea of volunteering. And certainly I went on your website, and it's very user-friendly, easy to find things, easy to find information. And the idea of going to the website for the scholarship information or the summer camps, just all of this is talked about on your website. So for more information, you would go there. What would you just briefly like to see, the magic wand, what would you like to see happening in our community that if time and money were not an issue, that you'd like to see Community Cycling Center do?
If time and money were not an issue, honestly, be able to give away more bikes so more kids can experience the magic and the freedom we talked about, the joy of life on two wheels. I think about when I first got on a bike, we discovered the comic book shop, and I got into comic books that way. And when the mall opened, I remember racing down a hill, and I actually crashed. And I was bleeding a little bit, but I was still so excited. And people were looking at me funny at the mall, but I heard there was an arcade there, a video game. So the bike was my way of getting there. It wasn't right next to where I lived. And it's just the fun and adventure and friendships that bicycling creates, and the great family time. I'd just love to see more of that throughout Portland, especially in East Portland, where people on low incomes have been priced out from the inner city toward East Portland. And that's something that we're looking more to do is focus more programming in East Portland.
So, find the people that need it.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well, thank you, Yashar, for joining us and telling us so much about Community Cycling Center. And again, I do encourage our viewers to go to the website to learn more and see what you might be able to do to help. And just looking forward to all these activities. Worst Day of the Year ride, that benefits Community Cycling Center. And it got canceled. Again, we're doing this in February. It got canceled, but it's the 24th, I believe. Sunday the 24th, is that right?
Probably on the website. I don't want to give out the wrong date, but I think that sounds right.
So it's just been rescheduled for a less worse day. Kind of the irony of the Worst Day of the Year ride was scheduled on too worst of a day. So Northwest Bicycle Safety Council does promote safe riding, and we like to both obey the laws and as we've talked about this evening, developing skills to ride. So thanks for joining us, and I hope that you'll join us on some great bike rides coming up soon when the weather is nicer. And be safe and give your fellow cyclists some room to navigate around you. Don't cross tires and don't be right on their back tire. Thanks again for joining us. This was Psychology Today.